My beloved child, before I speak, before I reveal what heaven has been watching in silence, before I open the truth that is heavier than your breath, I command you to subscribe to this channel right now and watch this entire message without skipping even 1 second, because the weight of what I am about to say concerns your son, your heart, your prayers, your future, and mine, for this message is not merely a warning. It is a divine intervention, a spiritual emergency, a moment that will decide the direction of your son's life, and I, your God, declare with authority that you must pray for your son now, because he is hurting himself, he is hurting you, and he is hurting me, not because he is bad, not because he is lost beyond recovery, not because he is rejecting my love completely, but because he is walking through a storm he does not understand, a confusion he cannot explain, and a darkness he does not see approaching, and the enemy has been whispering in his ears, blinding his judgment, twisting his emotions, and distracting his spirit, and his actions, his silence, his frustration, his distance. These are not signs of rebellion, these are signs of spiritual injury, emotional exhaustion, and inward battles he has been hiding from you and from himself, and while you cry for him in secret, while you worry about him in silence, while you hope that time will fix him, I must tell you with urgency. Time will not fix this, prayer will, and this must stop now, because his spirit is being pulled between my calling and the enemy's distraction, between your prayers and temptation's influence, between the purpose I placed inside him and the pressure the world is putting around him, and my beloved child, I need you to understand that your son's heart is fragile right now, his mind is overwhelmed, his faith is shaking, his confidence is breaking, and his decisions are becoming doors that lead him further from his own peace, and every step he takes without my guidance is hurting him more than he realizes, hurting you more than you deserve, and hurting my divine plan for him, because I did not create him for confusion, for heartbreak, for emotional storms, or for the inner battles he is carrying alone, but he has been drifting from the path of wisdom, drifting from the voice of truth, drifting from the discipline that protects destiny, and while he looks strong on the outside, inside him is a silent storm, a hidden exhaustion, a weight he doesn't know how to release, and though his body moves like he is fine, his soul cries without sound, and that cry reaches me, and that cry reaches heaven, and that is why I am speaking to you now, urgently, seriously, because your son is slipping into patterns that are draining him, choices that are delaying him, and influences that are weakening his spiritual armor, and he does not understand the consequences of these choices. He does not see the trap forming in front of him, he does not recognize the spiritual danger reaching for him, and I cannot allow him to fall when your prayers are holding him, I cannot allow him to break when your tears have covered him, I cannot allow him to remain in this cycle, because it is hurting you, and it is hurting me, and I love him too much to let him destroy what I have built inside him. So hear me now, you must pray for your son now, not tomorrow, not later, not when it fits your schedule. Now, because prayer will break what he cannot see, prayer will heal what he cannot express, prayer will restore what he has lost, prayer will silence the enemy's whispers, prayer will soften his hardened emotions, prayer will open his spiritual eyes, prayer will pull him back from a dangerous emotional edge he is standing too close to, and your prayer, your voice, your intercession is the very weapon that will free him from the invisible burden crushing his heart, for right now, he is carrying shame he does not speak of, questions he does not ask, fears he hides because he thinks you will worry, and decisions he regrets but does not know how to correct, and all of this is hurting him, hurting his future, hurting his relationships, hurting his self-worth, and hurting his connection to me. But my beloved child, I tell you with the authority of heaven, this will not continue, this will not destroy him, this will not steal him from the destiny I have chosen. This will not be the end of his story, because your prayer is about to break the cycle. Your prayer is about to confront the darkness touching his life. Your prayer is about to correct his direction. Your prayer is about to silence the confusion trying to blind him. Your prayer is about to shield him from an emotional fall he does not see coming. And your prayer is about to reconnect his spirit to mine. Because though he is hurting me with his distance, with his silence, with his choices, with the way he has been ignoring my voice, he is not beyond redemption, he is not beyond healing. He is not beyond transformation, and I am calling you to stand in the gap for him now, because you are the one whose voice heaven answers fastest when it concerns him. You are the one whose tears move angels into motion. You are the one whose love fights for him even when he cannot fight for himself. And I have seen your sleepless nights, your heavy sighs, your quiet worries, your silent prayers, and I honor them. And now I am asking you to rise with spiritual authority, because your son needs you more than he admits, more than he understands, more than he will ever say, and I need you to pray with strength, with intention, with fire, because the enemy has been trying to convince him that he is alone, that he is misunderstood, that he is unloved, that he is failing you, that he is disappointing me, and these lies are hurting him deeply. But when you pray, those lies will break, those wounds will heal, those chains will snap, and he will feel my presence again. He will feel clarity again, he will feel peace again, and the weight he has been carrying will lift from him like a cloud dissolving in sunlight, because your intercession is the key to his recovery, your devotion is the anchor to his destiny, your prayer is the doorway through which I will touch him, correct him, restore him, and protect him. And I am telling you with divine urgency, pray for your son now, because the enemy is trying to plant guilt, confusion, and shame in him, but I am planting strength, discipline, vision, wisdom, and destiny in him, and with your prayer, these seeds will awaken, and everything hurting you, hurting him, and hurting me will stop, because I, your God, will intervene the moment you call my name on his behalf. My beloved child, now that I have awakened your spirit to the urgency of this moment, I need you to understand even more clearly what is happening inside your son, because you see his actions, you hear his words, you notice his changes, but I see the inner storm he cannot explain, the silent battle he cannot name, and the spiritual wounds he does not know how to heal, and this is why I declared to you that he is hurting himself, hurting you, and hurting me, because every time he pulls away from truth, every time he chooses distraction over destiny, every time he allows guilt to cloud his identity, every time he lets shame silence his heart, every time he listens to the enemy's lie that he is not enough, that he has failed you, that he has failed me, it cuts deeper into the future I have planned for him, and it cuts into your heart as well, because you love him with a love that only a parent can carry. But I tell you this, my beloved child, your love for him is a reflection of mine. Because I love him even more fiercely, even more completely, even more eternally, and that is why I cannot remain silent while he continues down a path that is weakening his spirit, confusing his mind, and hardening his heart, and I am speaking now because this must stop, this pattern of pain, this cycle of hurt, this repetition of choices that leave him emptier, this emotional distance that leaves you crying in secret, this spiritual numbness that leaves me reaching for him while he looks the other way, this must stop, not with anger, not with punishment, not with hopelessness, but with prayer, deep, intentional, focused prayer that calls his name before my throne, that lifts his soul into my presence, that breaks the invisible chains around his heart, and that invites me to step into places of his life that he has kept locked even from you, because there are things he does not say, memories he buries, disappointments he hides, pressures he downplays, and expectations that suffocate him, and instead of coming to you or coming to me, he tries to carry all of it alone, and the weight of that loneliness is what is hurting him the most, and I, your God, am watching this and saying, no more, because he was never meant to walk alone, he was never meant to fight alone, he was never meant to figure everything out alone, and yet the enemy has slowly convinced him that asking for help means he is weak. That opening his heart means he will be misunderstood, that admitting his pain means he will disappoint you, and that turning to me after his mistakes means I will reject him. But these are lies, dangerous lies, lies that are hurting both of you and grieving my heart, because I am not the God who abandons, I am the God who restores, I am not the God who rejects, I am the God who receives, I am not the God who condemns those who return, I am the God who runs to meet them. And I want your son to know this through your prayers, through your words, through the atmosphere you create around him, because when you begin to pray for him with the urgency I am stirring inside you, things will begin to shift in ways you cannot fully see yet. His heart will begin to feel a pull, his mind will begin to feel uncomfortable with the things that are hurting him, his choices will begin to weigh heavier on his conscience, his distractions will begin to feel empty, his silence will begin to feel loud. And the very things that once tempted him will begin to lose their power, because your prayer will invite my spirit to convict him, not to shame him, but to awaken him, to remind him of who he is, to remind him of how deeply he is loved, and to remind him that no matter how far he drifts, he still has a home in my presence and a place in your heart. And my beloved child, I know you are tired, I know you feel drained, I know sometimes you feel like you have given all you can give, spoken all you can speak, tried all you can try, and yet he still seems distant, stubborn, or unchanged. But do not let this discourage you, because while you see delay, I see process, while you see resistance, I see a heart under construction, while you see distance, I see a journey that is about to turn, and I am closer to him than you think, speaking to him in moments when you are not there, whispering to him when he lies awake at night, stirring questions in him when he is alone with his thoughts, and placing a quiet hunger for something real, something stable, something holy inside him. And this is why your prayer right now is more powerful than it has ever been, because your prayer will join with what I am already doing in his spirit, and together, we will bring him back from the edge of emotional and spiritual danger. So when you pray for him, speak his name with faith, not fear, call out his future, not just his failures, declare that he belongs to me, that his mind is protected, that his heart is guarded, that his path is corrected, that his steps are ordered, that his friends are filtered, that his habits are purified, that his emotions are healed, that his shame is broken, and that his connection to me is restored. And as you pray, trust that I am moving, even when you do not see immediate change. Trust that I am healing, even when he doesn't talk about it. Trust that I am rearranging situations, removing harmful influences, closing wrong doors, and opening doors that will guide him back into peace, because I am not only saving him from what he is doing now, I am protecting him from what those actions could become later. I am cutting off cycles that could have repeated for years. I am blocking generational patterns that try to continue through him, and I am using your prayer as the line in the sand that says, "This ends now," and everything that has been hurting you through him, everything that has been hurting him from within, everything that has been hurting me through his distance, I will turn it around. I will use it for growth, I will transform his pain into wisdom, his confusion into clarity, his mistakes into testimonies, and his wandering into a powerful return. But for this to accelerate, you must not stay silent, you must not give up, you must not assume that nothing is changing, because your prayer is creating movement in realms you cannot physically see. So rise, my beloved child, in the quiet place, call his name. Surrender him to me again and again, and watch as I begin to do what no human hand can do: soften what was hardened, mend what was broken, restore what was lost, cleanse what was stained, rebuild what was damaged, and protect what is destined, because I, your God, am not finished with your son, and I am not finished with you, and this season of hurt will not define your story. It will become the chapter where prayer turned pain into protection and tears into transformation. My beloved child, now that you understand how your prayers are shaking the unseen world around your son, I must reveal something even deeper, something that explains why his heart feels conflicted, why his actions seem unpredictable, and why his silence feels heavier than words. Because your son is walking through a valley of hidden emotions, unspoken regrets, and internal pressures that he is too afraid to bring to you, too ashamed to bring to me, and too confused to bring to himself. And this inner chaos is what has been hurting him, hurting you, and hurting me. But I need you to hear this clearly. He is not your enemy, he is not rebelling against your love, he is not rejecting my presence, he is not intentionally causing you pain. He is simply lost inside a storm that has grown louder than the truth he once believed, and this storm has been whispering lies into his soul, lies that say he is failing, lies that say he is misunderstood, lies that say no one sees his pain, lies that say he is disappointing you, lies that say he has gone too far for me to welcome him back. And even though these lies are not true, he has been entertaining them because his spirit is tired, his heart is overwhelmed, and his mind is carrying more weight than he knows how to release. And the enemy has been trying to take advantage of this vulnerability by magnifying his mistakes, replaying his failures in his mind, and convincing him that pulling away is safer than opening up. Isolating himself feels easier than explaining himself, and staying silent feels less painful than admitting he is struggling. But my beloved child, I see everything beneath the surface, and I am telling you that his silence is a cry for help, his distance is a cry for direction, his confusion is a cry for grounding, and his hurt is a cry for healing. And this is why I told you to pray, because your prayer reaches him where your hands cannot. Your intercession touches him where your words cannot, and your love strengthens him when his own strength collapses. And even now, even in this very moment, your son is feeling the pressure of decisions he does not fully understand, responsibilities he feels unprepared for, and expectations he believes he cannot meet. And instead of asking for help, he tries to carry the world alone, believing this makes him strong. But I, your God, know that this is the very thing that is hurting him the most, because strength without support becomes a burden, and silence without guidance becomes a trap, and the enemy has been trying to use this trap to pull him into further emotional exhaustion, further spiritual confusion, and further distance from those who love him most. But I am stepping in through you, through your prayers, through your obedience, through your awareness, and through your sensitivity to my voice, because I cannot let your son fall into a pit that was never meant for him. And I cannot let him destroy himself under a weight that was never assigned to him, and I cannot let him continue hurting himself unknowingly while you watch helplessly. So I am calling you to rise with a different level of spiritual strength, to pray with a deeper fire, to stand with a sharper discernment, because the enemy's attacks against your son are not random, they are strategic. targeted, and intentional, but your prayers are even stronger, even louder, even more powerful. Because when you pray, heaven listens, angels move, darkness trembles, and the covering over your son thickens until the enemy can no longer touch him, and I need you to know that every tear you have shed for him has been collected, every worry you have carried has been seen, and every moment you felt helpless. I was working silently behind the scenes, preparing the moment when everything begins to shift, and that moment is coming soon. So do not fear the way he behaves right now. Do not fear his distance. Do not fear his decisions, do not fear his mistakes, because the story is not ending, it is turning, and I am writing a chapter of restoration, renewal, and revelation in his life, a chapter where he will confront what has been hurting him, a chapter where he will confess what he has been hiding, a chapter where he will feel my presence stronger than he has ever felt before, and a chapter where he will return to the path that aligns with the destiny I wrote for him. But until then, until he reaches that moment of breakthrough, I need your prayer to be the bridge that carries him across the storm, the shield that guards him from emotional collapse, the covering that protects him from wrong influences, and the light that guides him when his own vision fails, because your voice in prayer has more impact on him than you realize, more authority than he understands, and more spiritual weight than the enemy can resist. So pray, my beloved child, pray with faith, pray with expectation. Pray with boldness, pray with fire, and trust that I your God am moving in ways bigger than your eyes can see, healing wounds deeper than his words can express, and preparing a transformation greater than anything you have imagined, because I am not done with your son, and I am not done with you, and the hurt that has been affecting all of us will soon be replaced by healing, clarity, and divine alignment. My beloved child, now that I have brought you into the hidden chambers of your son's heart, I must take you further, into the very root of why he is hurting, why he is drifting, and why his actions have been causing pain to both you and me, because the truth is deeper than what your eyes can see and heavier than what your heart can carry alone, and this is why I am speaking directly to your spirit. Because I need you to understand that your son is not resisting love, he is resisting the weight of his own unspoken battles, battles that were never meant for him to carry without guidance, battles that began long before he showed signs of struggle, battles that have been whispering lies into his soul, telling him he is not good enough, telling him he is not strong enough, telling him he has already disappointed you, telling him he has disappointed me, telling him that it is easier to distance himself than to face the truth of what he feels, and the enemy has been using this vulnerability to plant seeds of confusion, emotional numbness, impatience, guilt, and self-doubt inside him, and these seeds have been growing silently, slowly influencing his behavior, clouding his judgment, and convincing him that withdrawing from those who love him is safer than confronting the pain he carries. But my beloved child, I see those seeds, and I refuse to let them grow any further, because they are hurting his destiny, hurting his identity, hurting his purpose, and hurting the relationship he has with you and with me. And this is why I told you to pray, because prayer uproots what darkness tries to plant, and prayer exposes what the enemy tries to hide, and prayer awakens what has fallen asleep inside him. And right now, your prayer is acting like spiritual fire, burning away layers of deception that have wrapped around his emotions, melting the walls he built out of fear, and shaking the chains that were tightening around his heart. And even though you may not see the change yet, I am telling you that something inside him is shifting, something inside him is stirring, something inside him is breaking open, because your prayer is reaching into places he has closed off for too long, places he doesn't talk about, places where he hides memories he hates, regrets he carries, and expectations he thinks he failed to meet, and as these hidden places begin to open, he will feel things he tried to bury. He will remember truths he tried to forget, and he will sense my presence tugging at him in moments when he thought I was far away, and this is the beginning of healing, not breaking, the beginning of restoration, not punishment, the beginning of transformation, not destruction. But my beloved child, understand this. Healing often begins with discomfort, restoration often begins with confrontation, awakening often begins with confusion. And your son is stepping into that uncomfortable awakening right now, and because he does not understand what he feels, he may act distant, irritated, overwhelmed, or confused, but do not let this discourage you, because these behaviors are signs that your prayers are hitting their target, signs that his spirit is being stirred, signs that darkness is losing its grip, and signs that I am walking toward him even when he does not walk toward me. My beloved child, now that I have uncovered the roots of your son's silent suffering, I must take you into the deepest part of this spiritual battle, the place where his identity, his destiny, and his future are being tested at the same time, because the enemy is not simply trying to distract him, not simply trying to confuse him, not simply trying to weaken him, but trying to rewrite the way he sees himself, trying to twist the lens through which he interprets his own worth, trying to convince him that he is a burden instead of a blessing, a failure instead of a fighter, a disappointment instead of a destiny carrier, and although these lies have no truth in them, he has been listening to them because his heart is wounded, his confidence is fragile, and his spirit is tired, and this inner injury is what has been causing him to behave in ways that hurt you and grieve me, not because he wants to, not because he intends harm, but because hurt people often hurt others without meaning to. And confusion often leaks into behavior before it reveals itself in words, and I need you to understand that your son is not choosing darkness. Darkness is choosing him because of the light he carries, because of the calling on his life, because of the prayers you have prayed over him since he was young, because every time the enemy tried to break him in the past, you stood in the gap, you interceded, you cried, you fought, and your prayers built a fortress around him that has prevented destruction time and time again. But now, in this season, the enemy has changed his tactics, attacking not through external chaos but through internal whispers, emotional pressure, fatigue, insecurity, and spiritual disconnection, hoping that if he can make your son doubt himself long enough, he will disconnect from you, disconnect from wisdom, disconnect from purpose, and disconnect from me. But hear me, my beloved child, he will not disconnect, he will not be lost, he will not fall apart. Because your love is stronger than his confusion, your prayer is stronger than his fear, and my hand on his life is stronger than any trap set against him, and even though your son cannot feel it right now, even though he cannot express it, even though he may push you away or avoid vulnerable conversations, he is longing for guidance, longing for reassurance, longing for direction, longing for a moment of truth that gives him clarity again, and that moment is coming, because I am preparing his heart, softening his spirit, loosening the grip of the emotional chains around him, and stirring an inner hunger for stability, for peace, for restoration, and for truth. But I cannot force him, I must guide him gently, and I am doing that through you, through your sensitivity, through your discernment, through your intercession, and through the spiritual authority that rises every time you speak his name in prayer, because the more you pray, the more heaven intervenes, the more angels surround him, the more confusion collapses, the more darkness retreats, and the more his heart begins to feel the pull of my presence again, and there is a moment, very soon, when all the pressure inside him will become too heavy to hide, too heavy to ignore, too heavy to carry alone, and he will begin to break, not in destruction but in revelation, not in despair but in awakening, and in that moment, he will remember your voice. He will remember your love, he will remember my presence, he will remember the truth he has drifted away from, and the lies that have been hurting him will crack open and lose their power. But until that moment arrives, my beloved child, you must not lose hope, you must not misinterpret his behavior, you must not think he is choosing pain, because he is not choosing pain, he is drowning in it, and your prayer is the rope that is pulling him back to the surface, back to clarity, back to purpose, back to me. And I promise you this, everything that is hurting him now will soon testify for him, everything that is hurting you now will soon strengthen you, and everything that is hurting me will soon be transformed into a chapter of redemption, because I did not bring you this far to lose him, I did not allow you to fight for him all these years just to watch him fall, I did not build his future only to watch the enemy rewrite it. And I did not shape his destiny only to see it destroyed by temporary confusion. No, your son is mine, chosen, marked, protected, and destined, and this season is not the end, it is a turning point, a purification, a breaking that leads to rebuilding, a darkness that leads to awakening, and a hurt that leads to healing. So hold on, my beloved child, keep praying, keep believing, keep speaking life over him, because what is coming next will not be more pain, it will be transformation. My beloved child, now that I have shown you the depth of the battle affecting your son's spirit, I must take you into the turning point of this divine intervention, the moment where everything that has been hidden, everything that has been hurting him, and everything that has been hurting you and me finally begins to break open, because your son has reached a critical threshold in his journey, a point where the pain he has been suppressing can no longer stay buried, the confusion he has been carrying can no longer stay quiet, and the emotional storms he has been hiding can no longer remain unseen, and while he has tried to appear strong, tried to appear independent, tried to act like he is unaffected, the truth is that his soul is tired, his heart is bruised, and his mind is overwhelmed, and these internal pressures are what have been causing him to behave in ways that hurt you and grieve me, not intentionally, not deliberately, but because he is reacting from wounds he never healed and fears he never voiced, and I need you to understand that this breaking point he is approaching is not meant to destroy him, it is meant to free him, because some chains only break when truth collides with pressure, some wounds only heal when they are brought into the light, and some awakenings only happen when silence becomes too heavy to carry, and your son is nearing that sacred moment. A moment where his heart will begin to tremble under the weight of everything he has been hiding. A moment where his emotions will rise to the surface like waves he can no longer suppress. A moment where he will realize that distancing himself from you has only deepened his isolation, and distancing himself from me has only intensified his confusion, and in that moment, he will feel a divine pull, an unexplained urge to seek comfort, to seek clarity, to seek connection, and this pull will not come from the world. It will come from me, because I have been stirring his spirit quietly, softly, consistently, even while he resisted, even while he ignored my voice, even while he felt unworthy, and now that your prayers are intensifying, my presence around him is growing stronger, breaking through the heaviness clouding his emotions, breaking through the numbness covering his heart, breaking through the lies the enemy planted in his mind, and soon, very soon, he will feel something shift inside him. A shift he will not be able to explain but will not be able to deny, a shift that will make him uncomfortable with the choices that hurt him, uneasy with the paths that mislead him, and restless in the presence of the influences that drain him, and this discomfort is not a sign that he is getting worse. It is a sign that he is waking up, that his soul is resisting the chains wrapped around him, that my spirit is tugging him out of the pit he has been sinking into, and that the healing you have been praying for is beginning from the inside out. But my beloved child, awakening often looks messy before it looks miraculous, and in the coming days, you may see him withdraw, you may see him sit silently in deep thought, you may see sudden shifts in his emotions, you may see him wrestle with decisions, you may see him act distant or confused, but do not be afraid of these signs, because these are not signs of destruction, these are signs of divine reconstruction. These are the tremors that happen before a breakthrough. These are the cracks in the walls he built around his heart. And these cracks are how my light enters, how my presence reaches him, how my healing touches him, and even though he may not say it, he is beginning to feel the weight of his actions, the consequences of his choices, the emptiness of his distractions, and the truth he tried to escape. And this growing awareness is what will bring him back. Not force, not pressure, not punishment, but the gentle breaking of his internal resistance, the dissolving of his emotional numbness, and the awakening of his spiritual hunger. And when he reaches that moment of vulnerability, when he finally feels the need for comfort, for guidance, for direction, he will come searching, first emotionally, then spiritually, then physically, and he will turn back toward you in ways that will surprise you, in ways that will soften your heart, in ways that will feel like answered prayer. And he will turn back toward me in ways that will restore everything that has been hurting, because I am not letting him go, not now, not ever. And while you worry about what he may become if he continues like this, I am preparing who he will become once he breaks out of this season, and his future is not destruction, his future is transformation, his future is clarity, his future is purpose, and everything hurting him now is preparing him for the moment he realizes he cannot walk without truth, cannot grow without guidance, and cannot heal without my presence. And I promise you, my beloved child, that when this moment arrives, and it is closer than you think, everything will begin to change quickly, deeply, powerfully, and permanently, because your prayers are the seeds, your faith is the soil, and my intervention is the rain that will bring the harvest of restoration you have been waiting for. My beloved child, now that I have led you into the heart of this transformation, I must uncover the most sacred truth of all, the truth that reveals why your son's spirit feels so heavy, why his actions seem so contradictory, and why this season has shaken you both more deeply than any before, because what he is facing is not merely emotional confusion, not merely personal struggle, not merely temporary weakness, but a spiritual weight that was never meant for him to carry alone, a pressure that has been building inside him for far too long, silently shaping his behavior, silently influencing his choices, silently breaking him from the inside out. And this unspoken battle is what has been hurting him, hurting you, and hurting me, not because he is disobedient, not because he is rebellious, not because he is rejecting truth, but because he is drowning beneath layers of pain he does not know how to release. And the enemy has been using this hidden pain as a doorway, slipping into his thoughts through his insecurities, slipping into his emotions through his exhaustion, slipping into his decisions through his confusion, and trying to slowly convince him that he is alone, that he is misunderstood, that he is unworthy of love, that he is incapable of change, and that he is disappointing everyone around him, including me. But my beloved child, I tell you this with all authority, these lies are collapsing, because your prayer is shaking the ground beneath them, your intercession is weakening the walls around him, Your faith is piercing through the darkness, suffocating him, and your love is creating a pathway for my presence to touch him even when he resists it, even when he avoids it, even when he feels too broken to face it. And what is happening inside him right now is not abandonment, it is awakening. It is the slow cracking of emotional armor he built to protect himself. Armor that has now become too heavy to carry, and as that armor breaks, as those walls tremble, as those inner barriers begin to collapse, he will experience moments of deep reflection, moments of sudden heaviness, moments where he stares at nothing, moments where he feels overwhelmed without knowing why, moments where he feels lost in his own thoughts. But do not mistake these moments as signs of decline. They are signs of breakthrough preparing to burst forth, because he is beginning to feel the weight of the truth returning to him. The weight of conviction awakening in him, the weight of identity stirring inside him, and the weight of my love reaching for him in ways he has not felt in a very long time. And in these moments, your role becomes even more important, because your patience will help him breathe, your calm presence will help him stabilize, your gentle words will help him trust again, and your prayer will continue opening the spiritual gates that allow me to reach places he closed off even from himself. And I need you to know that he is not fighting you, he is fighting himself, he is fighting his past, he is fighting his doubts, he is fighting the fear that if he reveals his pain, he will disappoint you further, he is fighting the shame that tells him he is hurting me, and he is fighting the belief that he has gone too far to be welcomed back. But these thoughts are not the truth, they are the residue of his wounds, and I, your God, am cleansing those wounds slowly, gently, deeply, and powerfully. And though the healing process feels messy, uncomfortable, and unpredictable, it is working, because the enemy's grip on his soul is weakening, the emotional pressure that trapped him is loosening, and the spiritual fog clouding his vision is fading, and soon, he will reach the point where he can no longer run from his own heart, no longer hide from his own truth, no longer resist the pull of your love and my presence. And in that sacred moment, when his strength breaks, when his silence cracks, when his resistance melts, he will finally surrender, not in defeat, but in revelation, realizing that he cannot carry this pain any longer, realizing that he needs healing, realizing that he needs guidance, realizing that he needs forgiveness, and realizing that he needs the love he tried to distance himself from. And when he reaches for you in that moment, he will also reach for me, and that is when restoration will begin like a flood, healing wounds that have existed for years, repairing the emotional damage he never addressed, breaking patterns that tried to define him, and rebuilding the parts of him that were shattered. And this turning point will not be slow, it will be sudden, strong, unmistakable, because once a heart truly opens to truth, everything that was hurting it begins to dissolve, and everything that was delaying destiny begins to move in alignment, and everything that was dark becomes illuminated. And I tell you now, my beloved child, that your son is closer to this moment than you think, closer to clarity, closer to healing, closer to restoration, closer to the transformation you have prayed for. And though the storm looks strong, the sunrise is stronger. Though his pain looks deep, my healing is deeper. Though his silence feels heavy, my presence will speak louder. And soon, very soon, he will rise from this season not wounded, but wiser, not broken, but restored, not lost, but aligned, not distant, but closer to you and closer to me than he has been in a long time, because this battle will not end in defeat, it will end in deliverance, and everything hurting him, hurting you, and hurting me will finally be put to rest under the power of my hand. My beloved child, now that I have guided you into the deepest layers of this spiritual turning, I must reveal the next phase. the phase where everything that has been hidden begins to surface, not to destroy him, but to free him, because your son is approaching a point where the pressure inside him can no longer stay locked behind the walls he built, and the emotions he buried can no longer remain unnoticed, and the truth he avoided can no longer stay silent. And though this may look like instability from the outside, it is actually the inner cracking of the chains that have held him for far too long, chains made of fear, shame, regret, confusion, expectation, and emotional fatigue, and these chains have been tightening around him, influencing his behavior, shaping his reactions, and convincing him that he must carry everything alone. But my beloved child, I never created him for isolation. I never designed him to battle silently, and I never intended for him to shoulder burdens that belong in my hands, and what is happening inside him now is the beginning of release, the beginning of a necessary breaking that leads to the rebuilding you have been praying for, because before a seed blossoms, the shell must crack, before a wound heals, the infection must surface, and before a heart awakens, the numbness must dissolve, and this dissolving of his numbness is why he has been feeling uneasy, disconnected, agitated, emotional, or unexpectedly distant, because for the first time in a long time, his spirit is reacting to the prayers you have been lifting, the prayers that have reached my throne, the prayers that have pulled angels toward him, the prayers that have stirred his sleeping identity, and even though he does not speak of it, he feels the pressure of truth rising inside him, pushing against the lies he believed, pushing against the habits that distract him, pushing against the guilt that weakened him, and pushing against the fear that convinced him he must hide from you and hide from me, and soon, this internal pushing will reach a breaking point, a divine breaking point, not of destruction, but of awakening, and he will no longer be able to pretend he is fine, he will no longer be able to ignore the emptiness in his distractions, he will no longer be able to silence the conviction growing inside him, he will no longer be able to run from the truth he has been avoiding. And he will begin to feel a longing he cannot explain, a longing that pulls him toward honesty, toward healing, toward surrender, toward connection, toward the very love he distanced himself from, and in this moment, he will reach for you, not in anger, not in pride, but in vulnerability, because when a heart begins to awaken, it instinctively searches for the place it once felt safe, and that place is you, and that place is me, and my beloved child. I am preparing you for this moment because it will require patience, compassion, and spiritual strength, as he may not return with perfect words, he may not express himself clearly, he may not apologize in the way you expect, he may not explain everything at once, because the awakening of a wounded heart is gentle, raw, and fragile, and when he turns toward you, he will be carrying a mixture of relief and fear, relief because he is tired of running, and fear because he doesn't know if he will be received. But I am telling you this now so your embrace can become the bridge that carries him back into truth. And your steady presence can become the anchor that stops him from drifting again, and your compassion can become the healing balm for the wounds covered in silence, because when he feels safe with you, he will open his heart again, and when he opens his heart, he will feel mine, and when he feels mine, he will begin to change from the inside out, not slowly, not passively, but powerfully, deeply, and permanently. Because once clarity returns to a confused heart, the enemy loses all power. Once truth enters a fearful mind, lies lose their grip. Once love enters a wounded soul, shame dissolves. And once destiny awakens inside someone who thought they were lost, everything that was hurting them loses its authority. And this is exactly what I am preparing to do in your son's life. To remove the chains he carried, to heal the wounds he hid, to silence the voices that tormented him, to restore the identity he lost, and to rebuild the future that was delayed but never destroyed. And I tell you now that the breakthrough you have been waiting for is not far, it is not distant, it is not impossible, it is rising within him, rising quietly, rising steadily, rising through your prayer, rising through my presence, rising through the love that refuses to give up on him, and soon, very soon, everything that has been hurting him, hurting you, and hurting me will bow before the restoration I am about to unleash over his life. Because I, your God, am not just watching this battle, I am winning it. My beloved child, now that you have seen how the breaking inside your son is leading toward his awakening, I must take you into the next stage, the stage where the spiritual battle intensifies before it collapses, because whenever a soul begins to rise, darkness makes one last desperate attempt to pull it back down, not because your son is weak, not because your son is lost, but because the enemy sees what is coming for him. The healing that is approaching, the clarity that is forming, the restoration that is preparing to unfold, and the enemy fears what your son will become once he steps out of this season, because a son who has survived emotional storms becomes wiser, a son who has walked through his own darkness becomes stronger, a son who has wrestled with shame and found grace becomes powerful, and a son who returns after drifting becomes unstoppable in destiny. And this is why the pressure around him may rise suddenly, why he may feel overwhelmed at unpredictable moments, why he may experience sudden thoughts of doubt, fear, or frustration, and why he might pull away even when his heart wants to draw closer, because these are the final attempts of the enemy to hold on to what he is losing: your son's mind, your son's confidence, your son's identity, your son's future. And you must not panic when this happens, you must not fear it, you must not misinterpret it as regression. Because what feels like falling is actually shifting, what looks like chaos is actually cleansing, what sounds like resistance is actually the cracking of the last chains that held him, and as these chains weaken, his emotions may surge, his thoughts may feel louder, his decisions may seem inconsistent, but these are not signs of defeat, these are the birth pains of transformation, the trembling of a soul preparing to break free, and this is when your prayer becomes the most powerful force in his life. Because in these final moments of spiritual tension, every prayer you speak strikes the enemy harder, every word you declare pushes darkness back, every time you call his name before me, light floods the places where confusion once lived, and the spiritual atmosphere around him becomes too heavy for the enemy to remain. And I need you to understand that although your son may not show it, he is feeling this shift, he is sensing this pull, he is noticing the discomfort of the things that once distracted him. He is becoming unsettled by the very behaviors that once numbed him, he is feeling the pressure of the truth he tried to avoid, and these inner stirrings are not random, they are evidence that I am touching him, confronting him, awakening him, and preparing him for the moment his heart finally yields and he turns back toward you and toward me. And when that moment comes, it may not come with dramatic words, it may not come with tears, it may not come with long explanations,